Um, However, there are those of us who keep the faith. You and I holding words as magic. And I love the idea that I, Marvin McLean, am holding words as magic. I just absolutely love this. Are you back with us?
I am back with you, and I'm so glad that you and others are holding the word as magic. And
Yes.
so this is a poem. Well, I thought I had it up. Let's see. I'm working on a new collection, and this is a poem that is, you know, in the realm of bead design, so to speak. Um, Okay, where are you? I had it up and then now I'm not seeing it. Okay, there we go. Okay, there it is. Yeah. So, thinking of how people are talking about Obeah. So, on the one hand, they'll say Obeah is bad and we should disband it, but they will show us the Indian, from India, fortune teller, and somehow that is okay. And I was thinking about my mother, and I was thinking about how she presented herself and what she did. And so this is a poem that my mother is dead, so and maybe that's a good thing because I'm not sure she would like the reference. Although once she heard the poem, I think she wouldn't object to it. My mother is a Obeah Woman. She would deny this, even object, presented herself as a good Christian, Baptist, Anglican. People say she could pinch off a leaf, plant it, and it would grow. She was afraid of no one, regardless of their size, man or woman, lizard or rolling calf. Kind to animals, she could nurse a sick dog back to health. Her voice was a balm, strong and still. She outranked most in the kitchen, outranked most at decorating a house, outranked most at growing fledged flowers, fruits, and vegetables, outranked most in shorthand and typing, outranked most in crochet and knitting, outranked most as a sharp dresser. There was nothing she could not do, including throw salt across the door frames to keep out duppy and evil people. My mother was an Obeah woman, but presented as a Christian. She played the organ at church, played the piano at home, sang Jamaican folk songs at pitch level, listened to Fats Domino record, and thumped her nose at the blues. She always had in the medicine cabinet a bottle filled with ganja and white rum, another bottle with an assortment of leaves soaked in bay rum. Whenever you were sick, she would reach in and pour a teaspoon or more into tea she brewed and you drank. My mother was an Obeah woman, a faithful Anglican going woman. When a new baby was born, she gave the mother a blue cake cube tied in a handkerchief to put at the baby's feet, and a small Bible opened at Psalms to put at the baby's head. She knew there was never just one way to be safe, and plenty Africa was still in her, even though she did not always recognize it. My mother was an Obeah woman, and she passed on her wisdom to me.
Oh, I love it. Well, I know Maureen is waiting for the Q&A to make her comments on that because she is very much tied to the whole concept of the eco-sustainability of our culture and connecting to that kind of wisdom. Oh, beautiful.
Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about your prose. Or do you have another poem you'd like to share at this time?
No, no,
Okay, good.
mhm.
Although I was hoping to hear the tongue is a drum. Do you have that?
That's on YouTube. The tongue is a drum, a drum, a drum. The tongue is a drum, and drumming has been outlawed. No drumming allowed, except between. I don't have that book. I didn't pull out that collection. No
Okay.
drumming allowed, except between 2 and 4 p.m. The tongue is a drum, a drum, a drum, and my tongue is an ancient form that doesn't. How it goes. It goes. But you can see it and hear it on YouTube.
So I kind of asked this question before, and I'm very obsessed with it, especially since I've had this awakening that I am an elder. So last
Mhm.
week we had the Jamaica Brew Fest, and I presented there. When I was walking into the auditorium, a young dreadlock, young man, um, said something to me, but and he said, "Mummy."
Mhm.
And for a minute, I paused, and I realized he was talking to me. And I spent the next few hours not just focused on that, but, getting used to the idea of how that word was used and the consciousness raising that indeed I'm an elder and it carries with it a particular responsibility. And I've
Mhm.
always felt responsible to my culture and so on, but that was an added, very textured layer to that part of my identity. So, does this generation of elders possess the tools to reclaim their ancestors, pass on their wisdom, a wisdom that is necessary for the survival of the diaspora? Are we doing enough of that? And how are we connecting to the rest of the African diaspora as Caribbean people, as Jamaican people? I personally don't think that that connection is there, but I would like to hear from you. Why isn't that connection stronger than it currently is?
Well, I think there are many factors why it isn't, but I think the connection is there because I hear more and more Jamaicans, rather than planning to go to Europe, are planning to go to Africa. For instance,
Mhm.
my niece took her two children to Kenya last year. And I hear more Jamaicans who are planning to go to Africa, which is not something you heard before. Um, I think we need to have organizations. You know, one of the wonderful things, and we have not come close, was Marcus Garvey UNIA, which really connected African people not just on the continent but throughout the Caribbean, Panama and Costa Rica. He had chapters in all of those places, and we no longer have those kinds of political or social organizations that link us. Now, the internet can do just that. And in fact, we have seen some connections with the internet as a result of COVID. I mean, when I was thinking of, COVID and I couldn't see my children who were in three different places in the world, but we could talk over there. When my daughter last year Christmas was in Senegal and she called me and we could talk over there, and she was there with like eight other young women, some from the Caribbean, some from other parts of Africa, some African Americans, and they were doing that connection. I think there's a cadre of young people in my daughter's age group, 30, somewhere between the late 20s to the mid 30s, who are in fact making those connections through various ways, through jobs, through, you know, fabric and music. My older daughter, who goes to Africa every year to a different French speaking country because she was in France and the French government sent her. She's making those connections. So I think there's a group of young people, women as well as men, who are making those connections with Africa. But I do believe we need to have more organizations that makes that effort. Now, was it last year or 2 years ago, the Ghanaian president came, and Jamaicans can now fly to Ghana without any kind of visa or anything like that. And other African nations are looking to do that. And there's also a talk in the CARICOM about us doing that. But here are some very factors. Because the transportation system was designed by Europeans for Europeans, if I want to go to St. Kitts, I almost have to go to Miami, spend the night before I can go to St. Kitts. So inter-Caribbean transport going from one place to the other is challenging. And the same way, it is expensive to go from Africa because you have to go through Europe. Now, I think Ghana, and I think they are establishing a direct flight from Kingston to Ghana. But we have to understand how the structures that we have inherited and we have not yet changed, how those structures keep us also from connecting, from visiting each other without having to always go through, and you can't always get a visa, without always having to go through the USA. And with this new person in place, God knows what's going to happen. So, yes, more needs to be done and more have to be done, but some things are being done. And we just have to understand that, it's a protracted struggle, and we have to constantly be vigilant and make sure that we make those connections and create those inroads for more dialogue and more communications. And also, Marva, there's a large body of Jamaicans who are living in Ghana, not just Rita Marley and those people, but they're Jamaicans who are living in Ghana, they're Jamaicans and other Caribbean people who are living in Ethiopia.
Yeah.
There are people who are moving to the mother continent. So it's
Yeah.
happening, not in a big way that we would like to see, but it's happening.
Yeah. Thank you. So could we hear an excerpt from one of your prose pieces?
You want an old or a new?
You choose. You choose.
I haven't looked at, I saw Donna Weir Soley as a online, and she, I want to commend and thank her because she has done so much for this with this novel in terms of teaching and promoting it. It begins with tears, and it's a novel that I'm actually looking to get reissued because it is now out of print. And so I picked it up yesterday and was browsing through it. And this part speaks to your theme about ancestor and connection, and it's called Tech Caution. Neither of them had known such passion could exist. They had planned to be more circumspect, but now that Desmond was certain how Monica felt about him and knew Samuel Lawrence was no threat or competition, he abandoned caution and took to going to Monica every opportunity he got. The word spread like bushfire that he was planning to leave his wife for Monica. Miss Cotton, who is the elder of the community, summoned Monica and warned her about impropriety and flaunting what she had. But Monica merely laughed and asked what was the harm in enjoying life. Miss Cotton didn't have the words or gesture with which to answer Monica, but she felt the disturbance in her head. She wanted to still it, shake it loose, but her efforts were of no avail. Sometimes seeing was too much of a burden. Sometimes feeling was too much pain. Miss Cotton sat and waited, hoping she wouldn't have to wade in the river, but sensing she couldn't avoid the tears that would be spilled. And so this novel is about many things, but certainly it's about ancestor, it's about home, the rural part of Jamaica, it's about people like Miss Cotton who are seers, they instinctively know, they're born with this innate gift. People who also know what is right and wrong, but decide, to hell with it, they're going to do what they want anyway. And it's about healing. It's about the community coming together after a great vicious thing was done and healing. And the river has always been and continues still to be important. I'm in Linstead and the river is all around, which is something I love. And people go to the river in a sense with the same, maybe not so conscious an understanding, but an understanding that that river water, that sweet ocean water is there to heal us, is there to help us wash away our trouble, is there to let us get closer and more in touch with ourselves. So it begins with tears, which was one of my most successful books in terms of sales, in terms of being taught in over 20 places, included in Africa, um, is very dear to me. And every time I reread it, I said, "What were you thinking when you wrote that? Oh, you wrote that again?" You know, I'm really amazed. It's was published in '92, so it's it's old. It's not a new book, and it still feels very new whenever I go back into it and read it, and it still feels as if they have a lot of lessons to teach us.
Yeah, yeah. That's the power of literature. And that is why we